Have you ever wondered if all the fuss about climate change is maybe a bit exaggerated? Is it just hot air, literally? No worries, we'll tell you right now. No, climate change is real, and it has been significantly accelerated by U.S. humans, especially since industrialization. So why do some people deny it? In this video, we will take a look at the top 10 most contradictory opinions on the climate crisis and what science really says about them. Ready for facts, mixed with a touch of humor? Let's go! 1. There's no such thing as climate change. Claim, oh, the Earth isn't getting warmer, people are just imagining it. Climate change doesn't exist. Seriously? That's like saying the sun doesn't rise in the east. Fact. Countless measurements worldwide clearly show the Earth has definitely warmed up over the past decades. According to the German Federal Environment Agency, the global average temperature has risen by over 1.3 degrees Celsius from 1880 to 2023. The last 9 years have been the warmest on record. Even glaciers are melting, sea levels are rising. In short, the climate is changing. NASA confirms there is clear evidence that the Earth is warming at an unprecedented rate. Those who still claim there's no climate change are ignoring reality. 2. The climate is changing, but only due to natural cycles. Claim, sure, it's getting warmer, but that's normal. The Earth has always had warm and cold periods. It's just nature. People shouldn't make themselves too important. Fact, yes, the climate has always changed throughout Earth's history, but never as fast as now. Natural climate fluctuations, such as slight changes in the Earth's orbit or volcanic activity, happen over millennia. The current warming, however, is happening rapidly, faster than at any point in the last 10,000 years. And importantly, it can only be explained by massive greenhouse gas emissions. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, states that since the 1970s, the human impact on warming has gone from suspected to scientifically confirmed. In other words, without humans, it wouldn't be this hot. Natural factors alone don't explain the current climate crisis. 3. CO2 is good for plants. Claim, carbon dioxide as a climate killer? Nonsense! CO2 is plant fertilizer. More CO2 helps plants grow better and increases yields. So what's the problem? Fact. Plants need CO2, that's true, but like with chocolate, too much of a good thing isn't always good. While higher CO2 levels can increase plant growth in the short term, the effect is often small and temporary. Furthermore, plants also need water and nutrients, which don't increase in sync with CO2. Studies have shown that more CO2 can actually reduce the nutritional value of key crops like wheat. More CO2 won't help if the plants are burning in the heat or the soil is too dry. The apparent fertilizing effect is outweighed by the negative impacts of global warming. In short, CO2 in moderation equals sign okay, but in excess equals sign disaster for plants and for us. 4. It's not that bad, it might even be nice. Claim, climate crisis exaggerated? Come on, a bit warmer weather, longer summers? Doesn't sound too bad. Maybe we'll even profit. Lower heating bills in winter and palm trees on the North Sea, right? Fact, it's not that simple. Climate change is a serious threat to humanity and nature. A warmer Earth doesn't just mean milder winters, but rather more extreme weather events. We are already seeing more heat waves, droughts, wildfires, floods, and storms globally. These are causing massive damage to our health, our cities, and agriculture. The European Commission warns climate change could turn our whole way of life upside down. The IPBS, Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, estimates that around 8 million known species are at risk of extinction due to climate change. Coral reefs, for example, are dying off at large scales with increasing temperatures. With a rise of plus 2 degrees C, we could see almost no coral reefs left. In short, not that bad? Yes, it is bad. We're talking about the very foundations of our civilization: clean water, food, livable spaces, and the global ecosystem. 5. The science isn't unanimous. Claim, for every study warning about climate change, there's another one that says it's no big deal. Many scientists are contradicting each other, so let's just wait until those up there agree. Fact. This argument is an old myth and false. In reality, there is an overwhelmingly strong consensus in climate research. Over 97% of climate experts agree that the Earth is warming and that humans are the primary cause. New reviews of scientific publications show over 99% agreement on this. So almost all climate scientists worldwide are on the same page. Since 2007, there has been no national or international scientific body questioning human-driven climate change. In other words, the real science agrees. It's just a few self-proclaimed experts on YouTube or Twitter who are still questioning it. 6. Climate models are useless. They can't even predict the weather right. Claim: today's sunny, tomorrow's rainy. The weather forecast for next week is off and off. And climate models want to predict the future decades ahead? That can't be right. Fact: weather and climate are not the same. Weather forecasts for specific days are tricky, but climate models look at long-term averages and physical principles. And they work remarkably well. Modern climate models have accurately predicted temperature increases in the oceans over the decades. For example, the projected increases in ocean temperatures matched over 95% of the observed values. Climate models have repeatedly shown that they reliably simulate the global climate. Yes, they're not perfect, but they're based on real physical laws. And the laws of thermodynamics don't care if someone believes in them. Climate models were even awarded the Nobel Prize in 2021 for their contribution to understanding climate change. If that's not a vote of confidence, what is? 10. In the 1970s, scientists predicted a new ice age. Claim: climate change was different back in the 1970s. Back then, they were predicting a new ice age. Now it's warming. Science can't make up its mind. How can we take this panic seriously when they keep changing their story? Fact: the new ice age prediction is a myth. There was never a scientific consensus about an upcoming ice age. Studies show that between 1965 and 1979, only 7 articles predicted cooling, while 44 articles predicted warming. In other words, the majority of climate researchers already expected warming back then, not cooling. The new ice age story was largely inflated by the media and a few outlier voices, but it didn't represent the state of scientific research. Today, as already mentioned, there's broad agreement on global warming, so you can safely throw that 1970s argument in the trash. 8. The sun is to blame, not CO2. Claim: sure, it's getting warmer, but it's probably because of the sun. Maybe it's radiating more, or there are more sunspots. The tiny human CO2 emissions can't possibly have as much impact as the giant sun in the sky. Fact: the sun does affect our climate, but it's not the cause of the current warming. Satellites have measured solar radiation precisely, and surprise. Since 1880, there has been no net increase in solar radiation. Solar activity fluctuates in an 11-year cycle, but over the past approximately 150 years, it has remained relatively constant and even slightly decreased. Meanwhile, the global temperature curve has skyrocketed. That doesn't add up, does it? Scientists have also found a clear fingerprint. If the sun were responsible, the entire atmosphere would warm. But in reality, we observe that the upper atmosphere is cooling, while lower levels are warming. This is exactly what you would expect with a greenhouse effect caused by CO2. Long story short, the sun plays a minor role in the current climate change. The main culprit is CO2, or more precisely, the fossil fuels we burn. 9. Volcanoes release more CO2 than humans. Claim: what are our few cars and factories compared to an erupting volcano? One single volcanic eruption releases so much CO2, probably more than we do in decades. Fact: this argument doesn't hold up. All volcanoes combined emit about 0.3 to 0.6 billion tons of CO2 annually. That sounds like a lot, but it's only about 1% of the amount humans emit each year. The IPCC estimates that the volcanic contribution is at least 100 times smaller than human-caused emissions. In numbers, volcano emissions are about 1/100th of human CO2 emissions. And there's no evidence that volcanic activity has significantly increased in recent decades. In fact, CO2 concentrations were stable for millennia before industrialization, approximately 280 ppm, only rising rapidly since we started burning fossil fuels. So, volcanoes are not to blame. It's our factories and exhaust pipes that are pumping CO2 into the atmosphere. 10. Climate protection is too expensive and useless. Claim: okay, maybe climate change is real, but the solutions are way too costly. Our economy would be ruined, jobs would be lost. Besides, if we do something while other countries don't, it's useless. Why spend billions on something we can't fix anyway? Fact: climate protection is not a luxury, it's an investment and a very worthwhile one. Numerous studies show that the costs of doing nothing are far higher than the costs of action. A recent study published in Nature estimates that if we continue without taking action, the global economy could shrink by about 19% by mid-century due to climate change. By 2100, we could see losses of up to 60% of economic output in a worst-case scenario. That would be an unprecedented depression. In comparison, climate protection measures needed to meet the 2 degrees Celsius goal would be 6 times cheaper than these damages. In other words, every euro invested in climate action saves multiple times more in future costs. Additionally, climate-friendly solutions create jobs, already millions worldwide, and drive new technologies. So the argument, it's too expensive, doesn't hold up. Inaction is what's costly. Climate protection is beneficial both now and later. Conclusion. Phew, that was quite a ride through some pretty questionable opinions, and we've seen that none of them stand up to a fact check. The climate crisis is real, human-caused, and a serious threat to our future. But instead of getting discouraged, we should act. The good news, we have the knowledge and the means to make a difference. According to UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres, the latest IPCC report is code red for humanity. But if we act now, we can still avert climate catastrophe. Everyone can contribute in small ways, saving energy, consuming sustainably, debunking misinformation, and, most importantly, put pressure on political leaders to make climate-friendly decisions. At the end of the day, it's not about being right, it's about ensuring our planet remains livable. So let's take science seriously, leave the myths behind, and work together. The climate crisis was caused by humans, and it can also be solved by humans. We only have this one Earth. Let's make sure future generations can still live on it.